The Parable of the Knife, the Plague, and the Unseen Inheritance, Parts 1 and 2.
Disclosure eyes, reports speech balloon. In a land divided between two kingdoms, one of towering stone, the other of shifting sands, a plague descended like a veil of smoke, choking the breath of the world. The people cried out, "Where is the covenant of our fathers? Where is the inheritance promised to the meek?" An elder emerged from the wilderness, bearing a scroll inscribed with flame. "Hear the riddle of the Zohar," he proclaimed. "When the surgeon's knife cuts not flesh but time, the firstborn of the desert shall find their name written in the book of Adam. The plague is a circumcision of nations, a severing of the old skin, so the hidden light may rise." The people trembled. "How shall the meek inherit the earth?" The elder pointed to a child nursing at the breast of a stranger. "The knife that divides also unites. The virus that isolates reveals the pulse of the collective heart. The heirs are not those who grasp, but those who kneel to wash the feet of the forsaken." Ishmael's birthright is not land or crown, but the key to the wellspring buried beneath the sands, the water that quenches all thirst when the hour is late. As the plague receded, the kingdoms of stone and sand crumbled. From the ruins, a garden grew where none claimed ownership, and the meek feasted on fruits they had not planted, under a sky wide enough for all names. Interpretive key, symbols, and practical meaning. The plague as a circumcision of nations. The COVID-19 pandemic, like the circumcision knife, represents a painful but necessary purification of societal structures. Just as circumcision symbolizes a covenant in Judaism and Islam, the pandemic exposed vulnerabilities, forcing humanity to confront systemic inequities, ecological disregard, and the illusion of separation between nations. The cutting away of old norms creates space for humility and interdependence. The meek inheriting the earth. In the parable, the meek are those who practice radical solidarity, caregivers, marginalized communities, and nations historically denied resources. Post-pandemic, their inheritance is not territorial dominance, but moral authority to reshape systems. Practically, this demands policies prioritizing healthcare, climate justice, and wealth redistribution, recognizing that true security lies in collective resilience. Zohar's Vayikra and the Book of Adam. The Zohar's commentary on Leviticus, Vayikra, often explores how suffering and sacrifice purify the soul of the world, Tikkun Olam. The Book of Adam alludes to humanity's shared origin, a Kabbalistic nod to unity beneath surface divisions. The plague, as a circumcision of time, mirrors the Zoharic idea that crises precede renewal, stripping ego to reveal the divine spark in all. Ishmael's birthright and the wellspring beneath the sands. Ishmael, ancestor of many Arab and Muslim peoples, Genesis 21 verse 13, is promised by God to become a great nation. Symbolically, his birthright here is not land, but the wisdom of desert survival, resilience, hospitality, and stewardship of scarce resources. Practically, this calls for recognizing Muslim-majority nations as critical partners in solving global crises, e.g., water scarcity, refugee aid. The wellspring signifies shared knowledge and reparative justice, e.g., equitable vaccine distribution, debt relief, or honoring indigenous land rights. The garden of unclaimed ownership. The parable's conclusion rejects zero-sum nationalism. The garden mirrors Isaiah's vision of swords into plowshares, Isaiah 2 verse 4. Real-world implications include transnational cooperation, e.g., climate accords, open borders for refugees, and economic models like universal basic income or communal resource trusts. Why this matters now. The pandemic revealed that viruses and solutions ignore borders. The inheritance of the meek demands dismantling systems where 1% hoard wealth while frontline workers, the modern meek, risk their lives. For descendants of Isaac and Ishmael alike, the parable urges a shift from competition over sacred land, Jerusalem, Mecca, to collaboration over sacred life. The Zohar's mysticism, as referenced by 137.org, becomes a lens to see crises as cosmic birthing pains. The knife of COVID-19 could cut humanity's umbilical cord to greed, forcing us to breathe anew, if we choose to heed the riddle. This parable does not claim literal prophecy, but invites action. The inheritance is earned through justice, not bestowed. What will we plant in the garden? Part 2. Enough is plenty. Your critique is incisive. It exposes the paradox at the heart of the metaphor. If material scarcity is an illusion, as modern overproduction and hoarding prove, then the birthright of Ishmael's descendants cannot hinge on survivalist ingenuity or claims to finite resources. Instead, the symbolic inheritance must shift to non-competitive stewardship of abundance. Here's how to reframe it, integrating the Zohar's mystical lens and modern realities, reimagining the birthright from scarcity to sacred reciprocity. The Zohar's V-proportion speaks of cosmic judgment, din, being tempered by mercy, rakamim. Applied here, Ishmael's legacy, often tied to din, strict justice, evolves into a role of balancing divine rigor with collective care. If no scarcity exists, only maldistribution, the birthright becomes the authority to redefine value itself. How? The desert as a mirror, not a battleground. The desert's harshness taught interdependence. Survival relied on shared oases and caravan collaboration. Today's desert is artificial scarcity, e.g., patented vaccines hoarded by wealthy nations. 1% controlling 50% of global wealth. The birthright isn't about claiming resources, but exposing the mirage of rivalry. Practically, this means Muslim-majority nations leading demands for open-source solutions, e.g., waiving intellectual property for green tech, medicines, debt jubilees to free global South nations from colonial-era economic traps, resource reallocation, e.g., Gulf states leveraging oil wealth to fund global solar grids, circumcision as a symbol of shared vulnerability. Circumcision, common to Abrahamic traditions, represents covenant, not domination. The COVID knife cut through the lie of hyper-individualism, revealing all bodies as vulnerable, all breath as collective. Ishmael's inheritance here is modeling post-tribal ethics. Hosting climate refugees, e.g., Jordan, already housing displaced millions, could pioneer transnational asylum frameworks. Sacrificing extraction profits, e.g., Saudi Arabia phasing out oil not just for self-interest, but as a global zakat, alms. The wellspring as data, not water. In the digital age, the well is information. The Zohar's hidden light, or Haganas, could symbolize open knowledge. Ishmael's descendants, historically excluded from Western epistemic hegemony, might inherit decolonizing AI, funding ethical AI trained on Arabic, Swahili, and Persian texts to counter algorithmic bias, reviving forgotten sciences, reclaiming Ibn Sina's medical legacy or Al-Khwarizmi's mathematics to solve modern crises. The meek as systems breakers, not landowners. Jesus, meek shall inherit the earth. Matthew 5 verse 5. In a post-scarcity context means those who dismantle artificial lack. This aligns with the Zohar's view that the earth, Eretz, symbolizes Malchut, divine sovereignty, not dirt, but the framework of reality. Practically, universal basic services, UBS nations like Indonesia or Egypt piloting free healthcare, education, and transit funded by progressive taxation. Sacred commons, treating water, seeds, and air as collective trusts, not commodities, a stance rooted in Islamic waqf, endowment, law. Why no competition is the key. The Zohar insists that Isaac and Ishmael's conflict only persists in the lower worlds, while in the divine realm, their souls are united. Today this means dismantling zero-sum nationalism, e.g., shared governance of Jerusalem as a global interfaith city, joint crisis response, Arab and Israeli scientists co-developing drought-resistant crops. The pandemic proved that a virus needs no visa. Our fates are linked. Ishmael's birthright, then, is orchestrating the symphony of abundance by replacing resource competition with circular economies, transforming inheritance from bloodline claims to ethical legacy, e.g., Qatar's Education City, funding scholarships for all. Conclusion: the birthright is a verb. The inheritance isn't a thing to own, but a practice. To unmake scarcity by refusing to participate in its lie. When the Zohar's surgeon's knife cuts away greed, what remains is a world where Ishmael's gift is showing that enough is plenty. The meek are those who dissolve borders, literal and psychic, to let the garden grow. As Rashbi would infer, the earth was always yours, but only when you stop grasping at its shadow.